the leaked version of the executive orders to start busting up big tech and the Communist Chinese operation.
Is there actually evidence of a Communist Chinese infiltration in the US? Let's do some fact-checking. The Chinese government is ramping up cultural and educational soft power efforts, boosting aid programming, upgrading efforts to influence politicians and political parties in other countries, and taking a more assertive approach to shaping global narratives about China and about China's developmental model, which we all know is communism. Gee, I wonder if they're doing it in the US, given that we are the only other one who they're battling for global hegemony with. So many want to talk about Russian meddling as though it's this huge, rampant problem, but let's take a look at Communist Chinese meddling in the US.
Regrettably, we found that China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming 2018 election, coming up in November, against my administration. We don't want them to meddle or interfere in our upcoming election.
Let's look at 4 key areas where the Chinese could infiltrate the US and have a major effect on our country as we know it. Government. The Clintons selling military secrets to China, for starters. Government allowing China to take over the Panama Canal. Our government also allowed China to take possession of the Long Beach harbor.
Google has refused to work with the U.S. military with its AI program, but officially works with the government of China.
Defense contractors within our government have allowed China to manufacture our military weapons in China. Many of these weapons have been proven to have been compromised with backdoors and Chinese controls. Former FBI Director James Comey was sitting on the board of directors of HSBC at the time while he was the FBI Director of the United States. That's the Bank of China, essentially. Gee, I wonder if there's a conflict of interest there. Dianne Feinstein's personal driver for over 20 years was arrested for Chinese espionage. Hillary Clinton's private server with her private emails that all happened to disappear was proven to have a backdoor for the Chinese to spy on top secret, classified government information. Or we could talk about how our government has allowed Chinese corporations to buy up large quantities of land in the United States. But the biggest piece of evidence is that Chinese spies have been recruiting and targeting US officials with access to secrets, and multiple cases have been found of them passing secrets to the Chinese, our universities and our education.
They had all their followers and their collaborators and their leftists raised with the Maoist brainwashing and propaganda on these universities.
Over 100 universities in the US have opened up Chinese government-funded Confucius Institutes in exchange for financing. The Chinese government is pumping an estimated $10 billion into these Confucius Institutes, which United States universities are financially profiting from. Gee, I wonder why the Chinese government wants to throw all this money into United States universities. It can't be to indoctrinate students with propaganda that's pro-Chinese. But wait, I thought propaganda was illegal in the United States. Oh, never mind. The Obama administration legalized propaganda being used on Americans in 2013. How convenient. The public school system in Chicago has already outsourced its Chinese program to Confucius classrooms. Why are we allowing the Chinese to influence how we teach our children in our public school system in America? Our news and our entertainment. In 2013, Time Warner and China Media Capital, a Chinese investment fund focused on media and entertainment, announced their formation of a strategic investment partnership. This is important because Time Warner owns CNN, Warner Brothers, and HBO. Why does CNN want to report all day about a Russian election meddling conspiracy? Meanwhile, we don't hear them reporting about this huge Chinese infiltration. Could it be because They're owned partially by Chinese investors? A Chinese billionaire has made several attempts to continue his plan to own Hollywood. You're not a billionaire in China or a company owner in China without the Chinese government's permission. So essentially, it's a hand of the Chinese government that's wanting to own Hollywood. This Chinese billionaire has already bought AMC, the Jurassic World producers, and has poured billions of dollars into Hollywood's 6 big production companies. We all know what these monetary investments really mean: our tech and our industries.
The communist Chinese, allied with the globalists, have literally taken control of much of this country and shut us industrially down. Since the 70s, the globalists have moved all our jobs to China. They've moved it all there to exploit the planet.
It turns out that China has been stealing U.S. intellectual property and technology, which has cost our economy billions of dollars annually. In fact, they've been harvesting our U.S. intellectual property and technology for both economic reasons and military purposes.
But China doesn't have raw materials. Their supply lines are cut off. And these executive orders that Trump is about to execute cut off China and cut off the EU and cut off big tech.
President Trump has announced investment restrictions on China and tariffs on $50 billion worth of technology exports coming from China to combat this problem.
They think that we don't understand what's happening. They think they're going to lie. They play this semantical game. They go, we don't censor Christians. We don't censor conservatives. We don't censor libertarians. We don't censor anybody who's, but we censor hate. So then they define conservatism and nationalism as hate, and that's how they play this game for a worldwide censorship program. And their own employees alerted the media.
Many have already criticized Google and claimed that Google has actually been implementing a censored search engine in the US already. LinkedIn, which banned Alex Jones, already censors content in China. Facebook has already developed their algorithm software to suppress certain posts from their social media network with the aim of potentially being allowed into the Chinese marketplace.
And monsters like Tim Cook with his slave factories at Foxconn and Apple and all the rest of these people think we're their slaves. They think that we are going to submit to them, but the truth is you have awoken and nothing's going to stop you, and the enemy knows it.
The one-sided trade deals between China and the US have made it so that Chinese companies can steal US technology and intellectual property and then simply sell it back to us with a cheaper price because they are able to make their products with slave labor. It is clear that the two nations who are battling for global hegemonic power over the world are China and the US. And the problem is, many of these big tech companies are willing to bet on China because our own US government has been so greatly infiltrated by the Chinese that we are weak and crumbling to our knees. And that is why President Trump has been renegotiating tariffs and trade deals with China. It's reasonable to conclude that because Alex Jones and InfoWars has the most diverse, integrated multimedia platform combining radio, television, internet, accessible distribution of information that's privately owned and operated, making it ideal for emergency broadcast in the event of a national emergency, it would be in China's best interest to take out InfoWars and Alex Jones while he's trying to sound the alarm that China has taken over and is making their move.
Well, guess what, fools? You thought you defeated America? All you did was wake her up!
Well, I guess there's something to Alex Jones' passionate rants.
America is governed by Americans. We reject the ideology of globalism, and we embrace the doctrine of patriotism. Around the world, responsible nations must defend against threats to sovereignty, not just from global governments, but also from other new forms of coercion and domination.
This is an emergency transmission from deep in the heart of Texas. The U.S. resistance against a global corporate combine empowered and funded by Communist China, allied with the big mega banks that set up Communist China in 1949. The Communist Chinese have taken control of U.S. telecommunications infrastructure. The Communist Chinese have taken control of Hollywood. The Communist Chinese have taken control of the main universities. This is all confirmed. This is not a drill. Big tech in Silicon Valley is almost completely run by the Communist Chinese government. They've officially become state-run. Apple, 100%. Google is now making the transition and announcing a merger and total worldwide censorship. They are now beta testing using me as the straw man, a demonized version of Alex Jones, to do that. This is happening. This is not like the other probes before that were meant to get you used to probes and censorship, thinking you would adapt to censorship by just putting up with it. Now this attack is thousands and thousands and thousands of times the magnitude of all previous attacks. This is a titrated dose, reverse psychological warfare operation using adapt and overcome, subversion, paradigm manipulation. In layman's terms, they are manipulating the fact that we adapt to being oppressed. We adapt to being pressed at the low dosages of oppression. Now, when the megaton hits us of the total takeover, we try to adapt to the poison infusion instead of not knowing it's a lethal dose if we accept the dose. Total Internet of Things, integration, global social score, complete command and control system. It is the virtual reality AI weapon system now attacking the United States with traitors inside the major security agencies, blocking Trump's resistance of the program and attempting to stop us from removing the tentacles of the Chi-Com/Big Tech Banking Combine emergency situation. I have been chosen for destruction because I brought you this information and have been ramming it out as much as I can. They want to double use me, as they always do in any complex system of mathematical deception, where every angle of my good is turned against us. So they take what I've said, being sincere, build me into an insincere person in the straw man. I'm a person that cares about life and children and is against these wars. And so they make me a herder of children. And then they build me into this lie to then set the distraction while they're actually censoring all of you to make a debate about Alex Jones. So even if I didn't sell out to them, they now use me as an archetype to serve them by being the main distraction. I have now been captured by the enemy in the information warfare fulcrum and is being used against you. Only your full understanding of this key will break you free from this paradigm. I have given you the transmission. Now break free.
I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Thomas Jefferson. If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.